Ever since I discovered that my Freemason membership includes an Apple TV subscription, I've been a big fan of uncovering hidden value. You can do the same thing with different chords, right? So today we're going to uncover some kind of different chord shapes that maybe you haven't used before. We're going to do it through a very, very typical common chord progression I'm sure you've heard before. It's basically a 1-6-4-5 progression, which would be like a D major, B minor, G, A. But we're going to use some different chord voicing, so it's going to sound like... Okay, so we're using a different part of the neck than maybe you might be used to. And if you haven't realized already, I'm using some guitar pedals today, okay? One of the reasons that I don't use guitar pedals a lot in a lot of the instructional videos is because I'm always having issues like putting my pedal board from the big spot over there into something smaller. And that's why I just wanted to talk a little bit about this new Ernie ball power supply they sent me. This isn't really like a sponsored video or anything, but they did send me this. I think it's something that I've actually wanted for a long time. A super, super small power supply. It has, you can power up to 5 pedals, 300 milliamps each, isolated power supply. The perfect size, under $100. Absolutely love this. I didn't really feel like making an entire video just on a power supply, but definitely if you guys have any questions about my pedal board or whatever, maybe I could do another video on it or in the QA. But highly recommend this Ernie Ball Volt power supply because now I can kind of just Velcro it under a smaller board and I just keep it by this amp. Because for me, 5 pedals is really the most that I need. Compressor, maybe like overdrive, delay, reverb, and something weird. In this case, it's like the Juliana pedal that I use a lot. But anyways, let's talk about this chord progression. All right, so we have D major, B minor, G, A. You probably already know these shapes where it's like traditional D major, this B minor, G, A, okay? That's known as a 1-6-4-5 progression. All that means is if you take the notes in the D major scale, 1 would be D, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 would be B, which always becomes a minor chord in this key. 4, 1, 2, 3, 4 is your G, and 5 is your A. So 3 major chords, the 1, 4, and 5, and 1 minor chord, the 6, and then organize them however you want. But let's just start kind of doing different chord voicings in a different part of the neck to make them more interesting, okay? So the first one we're going to do looks like this, okay? I love this one right here. Basically, this is like a D major 7 chord, okay? My middle finger is grabbing the D on the D string, the 12th fret, so it's an octave higher than open. My pointer finger is grabbing the 11th fret on the G string, okay? So right there, this is a major third. So just by beginning this chord, we've established you have a root note and a major third, determining its class as a major chord. And then right here, my pinky is grabbing the 14th fret on the B string, okay? So this note right here is a C sharp. In fact, if I go one more, that's an octave D. But because I'm backing off one, that becomes the 7th note in the D major scale, okay? So we have a 1, a 3, and a 7 from the major scale, and that counts as a D major 7, okay? So we're actually leaving out an A note. We can get it in other places if you want. But that's the cool thing about just kind of coming up with different chord voicings is maybe you can omit a certain note. Usually it's the 5th, right? D, E, F sharp, G, A. Usually there's an A in a D major chord, but we're just kind of implying that. And because we do that, I think it opens up the flavor of the major 7 chord because there's a little more room for that major 7 note to shine because the 5th isn't there. So this is going to count as our major 7 chord, our 1 chord in the key of D. The great thing about this is all of this is movable, right? To any different key, we'll talk about near the end. Basically, this is just our 1 chord, so this replaces the D major in the open chord way. So now let's find something near here to make a B minor chord with, all right? So let's just keep your pinky exactly where it is and move your middle finger to the 2nd fret past the octave, the 14th fret on the A string, which is a B note, and let's make it minor, okay? So remember when we started with the D chord, here's our root note, and then kind of like diagonal one makes it a major chord. If we flatten that, go 2 frets back, that would make something minor. That kind of distinguishes a minor class of chord. So we have the B on the A string, the 14th fret. Your pointer finger is going to grab the 12th fret on the D string. So we still have that D note, okay? But now, since this is our root note, this is a minor third. And then your pinky's right where it was on the 14th fret of the B string, and your ring finger is on the 14th fret of the G string. Okay, so this is going to be our new B minor chord. We can call this B minor 9. All right? Now it's really easy to navigate from the 1 chord to the 6 chord just by that small little movement. All right? Okay? 1 to 6. All right, now let's find a G chord that is kind of in this area, okay? So one of my favorite major 7 chord voicings looks like this right here, okay? So I'm taking my pointer finger and I'm holding down the 12th fret, the highest 4 strings, and then either my pinky or my ring finger is gonna grab the 14th fret on the high E string, okay? So this is gonna be a G major 7 chord voicing. Now, I've been talking about like octaves a lot in this lesson so far because I'm mirroring everything past the 12th fret. That's why that 12th fret has 2 dots because, again, open E is just an E, the 1st fret on the E string is an F. Do the same thing, the 12th fret on the E string is an E, the 1st fret past the 12th fret is an F, so we're kind of mirroring everything over the 12th fret. That's why 12 is an important number in music because there's basically 12 notes. So once you go through 12 frets, they start repeating each other. So you may have played this G major 7 chord voicing, but open. This is the easiest one to do. You just hold down the 2nd fret on the high E string, and that's a G major 7 chord voicing. Here's G major, 7. Okay, same thing here. G major, 7. Okay, so now we have the 1 chord, to the 6 chord, to the 4 chord, and see that's a pretty efficient use of movement. In fact, when I'm coming from that B minor, I just really take my pinky and I kind of just shift it down. It never actually leaves the fretboard. Instead of picking it up and placing it, it just kind of rolls down and my pointer finger grabs the rest of it. All right, you can use your ring finger too if you're not as versed in the pinky arts as some, but yeah, so there's the 4 chord. All right, so now let's come up with another 5 chord. Let's find a way to do an A major chord. If you look right here, if we do that same mirroring thing past the octave, A is really easy. It's just the 2nd fret relative to the 12th fret. Again, that's 14. There's our A, but I want to do a different kind of chord voicing to make it sound a little spicier, right? Unlock some of that hidden value. Okay, so let's find the A string, great place to start. Let's make it major, right? Because this was a major chord. So I have 12A, 11D, there's that major 3rd. Now here's where it gets interesting. The 5 chord in any key can become a dominant chord, dominant 7 chord. What that means is we have the 12th fret of the G string to kind of give it that little bluesy dominant 7 sound, but we're not done there. Oh no, let's actually try to take the 12th fret all the way down, and now this is like an A9 chord, okay? I think this is a really cool one, and the nice thing about this one is because you're using your ring finger, you can use your pinky to actually grab the 14th fret and then kind of inflect that. I always think that sounds really cool to kind of inflect that before going home. Okay, so it's really, we're kind of transforming this from an A9 to like an A13. Again, don't get super caught up on like the names, the chord naming of stuff. I think it's more just about, especially on guitar, learning different shapes that you can use together. Again, I'm not saying that chord naming is important. Chord naming is super important and kind of like finding out where these notes are in a major scale, which is why we talk about them a lot of the time. But I think this is just kind of like a cool way to play those same 4 chords that you'll see popping up in really, really common chord progressions in a different part of the neck. Okay, so here we have our 1 chord. There's D major 7. Then we're going to go to our 6 chord, B minor 9. Then we have our 4 chord. That'd be like G major 7. And then back to our 5 chord, and then we can always go back to 1. Okay? Now, there's all sorts of ways to move this around. You can see that these work really well in relation to each other. So let's kind of talk about how we can move this, right? The root note from where this all began, the key, we said this is in the key of D. That's our one chord. And here's our root note, right? So whenever you think of the D string, think of this as being like a way that you could start this entire mechanism. Maybe let's do this in the people's key, the key of G. Let's bring this all the way down to the G on the D string, which is the 5th fret. And again, I always recommend when you're maybe starting guitar to learn the low E string notes first, because so often we root, a lot of big chords on that low E string. But an easy way, once you know the E string notes, E, F, F sharp, G, G sharp, A sharp, B. And if you want to learn extra videos on this, check out my Pateron, because it's got all this stuff in much greater detail. If you learn those notes on the E string, you can just octave down. The 3rd fret on the E string, there's our G, is the 5th fret on the D string, okay? So we can start that whole mechanism on this one right here. So here's G major 7. We're just gonna play a 1, 6, 4, 5 in the key of G now, right there. And then remember, you can kind of take your pinky and pivot into the 6th chord. What's the 6th chord of the key of G? You can count through the notes in G. G, A, B, C, D, E. This is an E minor 9. And remember, we just kind of pivot down to the 4 chord, to the 5 chord. And then it ends on G, okay? So it's really just a great way to maybe make little touchstones or landmarks as far as how to navigate very precisely within a key. All right, and I think that's so much more important to me than just memorizing different chord shapes, because eventually, if you're gonna play music, you're probably gonna play chords that are in the same key. So it's definitely worth taking some time and understanding how those chords relate to each other and where they are in relation to each other, being rooted on different root notes. So really, we're thinking of the D string and then rooting it and starting it just like that, okay? Another shameless promotion, one of the things that kind of sparked me to start with this chord voicing is because one of my original songs, Buried, it's got a cool riff. We just released a version of it, an acoustic version with Andrea, so I'll link you to that in case you're interested too. So again, another shout out to Ernie Ball and the Volt Power Supply. Might have a paddleboard video coming soon. If you guys are interested at all, just let me know. And if you have any questions or comments, hit me up in the comment section, Instagram, Twitter, or the website. I'll talk to you all soon. Thanks a lot.